Yes, good day, everybody. I'm back today again to continue our review of the book Great by Choice, by New York bestseller Jim Collins. And the book is to address a lot of things we need to do in the midst of chaos, uncertainty, and what it means to say you are lucky or you have luck. So, while I try to get us ready, I'll be taking questions today from people who have questions, people who have suggestions, and the rest. So we'll kind of spend a little bit more time today. I'm hoping that the internet today will be very good. Yesterday, the internet played Mojoro on us, and then the session was ended abruptly. Yesterday, I stopped at productive paranoia, one of the qualities that the writer talked about. And then we mentioned three things that people, leaders of businesses, leaders of organizations, what they do extremely well that keeps them above, that makes them separated from others in terms of their uniqueness in behavior. He talked about being a fanatic, disciplined person. He talked about productive paranoia and empirical creativity. So I tried to explain the paranoia yesterday. Today I'll be looking at the empirical creativity. I've been looking at this book, I've been reading it, and I've really been enjoying it. At the time, I had to slow down and start making some relevant, good decisions for myself and for my business. So in the empirical creativity, the writer talked to us, or he explained or defined it as when we are using data and facts and figures for creative purposes. That's the use of data, the information you have for creative purpose. So let me give us an example. For instance, he gave us an example, an American example. I'll try to use something local as an example. So you want to start a business, you want to take a decision, you want to move into a new environment. It's important for you to, at that time, do your due diligence on the place you are going to. Is it a crime area? Is it somewhere that they don't have light, there is no electricity? Is it somewhere that the rate of crime is very high? Is it somewhere that in that area there is kidnapping? Is it an area where you would not have rest of mind? So those are data you gather together to make an informed decision. So he talked about the use of data, facts, and figures for creative purpose. So leaders that are great by choice, they are not people that they don't make their decision based on other people's opinion on or what they watch on TV. I've seen a lot of people fall into that category, especially when you want to buy a property. You just base 100% of your decision on the person's marketing the property to you. It is very, very wrong. That is what this writer is saying. So I'll read a paragraph here that he talked about this empirical creativity. It says social psychology research indicates that at times of uncertainty, which are the times we are now, most people look to other people. They look for answers from other people. They look for ideas from other people. They look for suggestions from other people. And sometimes the people you're actually asking don't have the data that you are looking for to make a decision. So in times like this, people look out for information, TV for guidance, newspaper, talk to people. But in contrast, people that are great by choice, according to this writer, they do not look for conventional wisdom to set their course, but they primarily look at what other people do, what other experts say, and then they look for empirical evidence. So I'll give you an example. A couple of months ago, I was in a part of the United States and I was in a taxi. So I was asking somebody, and I said, what's the economy like? Everybody on news is saying, oh, the economy is booming. And the guy was telling me that he doesn't feel the economy is really booming, that there are a lot of things, a lot of people now, rent is high, and a lot of people are living big houses, buying cars, but they can't really sustain it. So I said, well, for me, based on the information I have, which is the empirical creativity I'm talking about, empirical evidence, I know that recession occurs every decade. There is always a recession every decade, at least in the United States. In Nigeria, maybe because we don't have data, we create a lot of self-made recession. In the United States, you get a recession almost every decade. So And then this man was telling me that everything is not good. So I spoke to another person, said, the economy is doing very fine, very fine. Then I went online by myself and I started looking at it. Now, what are the indices that the economy is not doing well? Rent is going up. In America, when rent is going up, that means more people are not able to buy houses because it's cheaper to own a house than to rent a property. At the same time, the president of the United States has stopped immigrants' entrance into the US. So we have less people come from outside to relocate to the United States because most people that come from outside that are immigrants or non-immigrants, what do they call it, come in with less documents, so they don't qualify for mortgage, so they would rather rent over a long period of time before they get themselves together or before they get their foot on ground in the United States. Now those numbers have been reduced, so what is still pushing up recession? They don't have an answer. But for me, using my empirical evidence, going back to 2009, going back to 1990, 91, I can see that there's a relative chart with high rent with recession, high rent with uncertainty of jobs. So someone that is not certain of his job would rather rent than take a mortgage, because once you start defaulting on mortgage, it will now affect your credit score, and a credit score can take you years to repair. So that is an empirical analysis for me. So for an individual that is in business or wants to take a decision, it is very, very good for you not just to base your decision on what an analyst says and analyze what an analyst says on TV or what you read in the newspaper. Go on your own and make your own findings. Gather your data. It's something that will take you time, but it's always worth it. So when oil prices now, for instance, now in Nigeria, globally, we know that our economy is strictly based on oil. Oil has fallen to about 20-something naira per barrel. So for me now, the first thing I would do if I'm in the oil sector or I'm a worker in the oil sector, I need to go online and check what happens when oil prices fall. I don't need anybody to tell me on TV. I don't need anybody to tell me in the newspaper. I go online. What are the implications? What are the risk aversements to my job, to my livelihood? Okay, there'll be less of contracts in the oil and gas industry. So if I'm a contractor in the oil and gas industry, I have sufficient time now to start planning. That is what he's saying about how people strive in the midst of chaos. But the moment you start understanding and using this empirical data, these facts, this data, these figures, you are able to actually plan and be at the edge over others. So someone that is a contract staff, let me use the word contract staff in an oil and gas sector, and you see that oil prices are coming down, contracts are stopped, works are not going again, and you are still sitting and you are still saying, well, nothing will happen, they will not lay us off. You are deceiving yourself. I pray they will not lay the person off, but the person now needs to start having a plan B, to start saying, okay, what if in the next 3 months the company is not making profit again, they need to lay off, what do I do? So those are examples that this writer gave us, that we need to be using empirical data analysis to be able to make good decisions. So I looked at the story of Bill Gates. In this book, this man also x-rayed the man Bill Gates. He talked about him like in 1986. Nobody knew Bill Gates so much like the other that we knew him as a Microsoft guru. He was doing well, but he wasn't the richest man in the world. At that time, he had a lot of fears. And here I'm talking about productive paranoia. I talked about it a little bit yesterday, but he gave us another example in another page that I found very interesting. He said Bill Gates was somebody that over the course of his life, for over 20 years, he was somebody that lived in productive paranoia. No, he defined what productive paranoia is for us yesterday. Let me just quickly look at it. He said productive paranoia. So paranoia means, let me spell it, Paranoia. Paranoia is like being scared, afraid. But when you are now using a productive way, that is what this writer is saying. He says your ability to be hypervigilant about potential bad events. So if I am a cyclist and I'm riding a bicycle and I have my iPhone with me, and I'm riding it alone, and I'm taking a dark spot where there are possible criminals or area boys, and I'm not careful that these guys can stop me and snatch my phone, then I'm being foolish. Because what he's saying here is that for you to have a sense of fear and mitigate against it in a productive way, plan against the risk or a loss you can suffer at that point. So he said it was a very good skill that Bill Gates used to use. He said fear should guide you, but it should be latent. It should be with productivity. It should be something that even as much as I am afraid, the Bible says I should fear not. Yes, I shouldn't fear not, but I should put measures in place. What if, yesterday I cited the example of somebody that has a sawmill. You are selling wood, but your stock has over ₦1 million worth, and you don't have fire insurance. The day fire comes, all your stocks will be wiped off. That is being negligent of your fear and not using it productively. So he talked about how Bill Gates was using his own productively, and how he has always lived in fear. He always felt vulnerable, that if he doesn't put some things in place, he can lose anything. Actually, personally, I've also seen that most business leaders that are really genuine about their businesses are people that are vulnerable. They don't think they have 100% control. They always look out for what if this happens. That's what helps them to have a plan B. So if this happens, what do I resolve into? Can this thing ground me? Can this thing help me? Can this thing take me backward? Nobody prays for backwardness. But the moment you have that productive paranoia in you and you're able to mitigate against any unforeseen situation, it helps you to progress very well. So I looked at the story of Gates versus Scully. Scully was the former MD, or the former CEO of Apple. Apple then in the 1988 was still headed by another person that was called Scully before the Steve Jobs that we all know. At that time, when you compare Microsoft and Apple, Microsoft was doing far better than Apple. Apple wasn't doing anything. But even in the midst of it, Bill Gates was living in so much fear that if I'm not careful, I can lose everything I have worked for. If I'm not careful, just any wrong memo, any media hype can make my shares lose. But at that time, the CEO of Apple was Scully, was somebody that was living his life. He didn't care about all this things, but he was doing well. His management style worked. But at a point, everything started coming down until Steve Jobs came in the 1990s. So sometimes it is good to be hypervigilant. That's the word. Not just being vigilant, it's good to be hyper vigilant, even in good times. So I would share my personal experience. So in 2015, 2016, things were really, from my own business calculation, I always look at our progression every year, and we were doing well. We had tons of employees, tons of projects, but in the midst of it, that year, we were negative in profitability. Why? Yes, there were projects, but there were so many loopholes that money was going out unaccounted for, unmonitored. So in the midst of good times, you have to be hyper vigilant. You have to be careful of the happenings around you. You have to open your eyes and then be able to make good decisions. So by embracing the possibility of dangers, you put yourself in a superior position to overcome that danger. I like this line in the book. I underlined it. He said, by embracing the mirage of a possible danger, the fact that I know that there is a possibility that a danger can occur within my business, within my environment, you put yourself in a superior position because you're already in awareness of what can happen to overcome that danger. Okay, I'll go on, and then I was intending to rush and finish this book today, but man, this book is too good, and it's very, very practical and real to me. It's about 255 pages. For those of us that have just joined us, this is the book we are reviewing, Great by Choice by Jim Collins. It's a book that talks about how to thrive, how to prosper, how to be great in the midst of uncertainty, chaos, and luck. Okay, so as I round up, this is thoughts about productive paranoia. Gates didn't just sit around. He said Bill Gates is now looking at the life of Bill Gates. Bill Gates didn't just sit around writing up memos or talking about his fears, that I'm afraid I can lose this, I can lose that. But it was somebody that he was keeping his workspace inexpensive. So I found that again very captivating. He was hiring better people. He was building cash reserves, working on the next software, and ahead of everyone. So one main thing that he wrote here was that he maintained a conservative financial position. So now that we are in a lockdown, one of my friends told me yesterday that he never believed that he could actually go without spending money in a day. That he actually felt that every day money is to be spent. But now that he's in a lockdown and there's nothing to buy, he's forced to really understand and examine himself. So it is actually true that I can actually stop spending money on some things and actually save money. So these are things that we as individuals need to cautiously put in place. So for him, Bill Gates maintained a very conservative financial position. As much as you have liquidity or money is coming in, as an individual, as somebody that wants to be great by choice, according to this author of this book, you need to maintain a very conservative financial position. Okay, let me look at another point that the writer gave us in this his example, and I found it very, very inspiring. He said leaders that do well, that go from good to great and great to great. Most importantly, they are incredibly ambitious. They have good ambitions. They work hard. They set gold standard for themselves. But it's not only that drives them. So he gave us a story here. I'll just read a paragraph. He said to focus on your personality, to focus on your individuality, to focus on your strength is not enough for you to be successful. But he said you must define or choose not to be defined by money. You must make up your mind that as a business leader, as an entrepreneur, as someone that is doing business, I will not be defined by money. So he said that is one thing. If you look at the life of Bill Gates, even if you look at Mark Zuckerberg today, you see him wear just t-shirts. He doesn't wear any branded. So I see a lot of people. Because we are all idle at home now, I'm forced to go to some website. My wife does a lot of Instagram. When I go to Instagram, I see a lot of people park cars worth billions, millions. You have 20 cars worth billions in your compound. It is very nice. I love cars. But this man said they choose not to be defined by wealth, by money. It's good to live a good life, but they know that there's a bigger vision for them. So businesses that have really, really done well, I told you that this man is x-raying 7,000 global businesses. Unfortunately, no Nigerian company actually falls within that 7,000 because there's really no Nigerian company that has done fantastically well to attract them, that have had an history of up to 30, 50 years as at the time they wrote this book. So they didn't define themselves by money. They didn't define themselves by fame. Sometimes I have a very, very thin line between understanding advertisement and fame. Yes, it's good to advertise your product, advertise yourself as the face of the business, but it actually has another thing to do with fame. So as somebody is advertising his business and being the face of the business is good, but fame is another one of, okay, I'm going to a party, I'm spending money, I'm ovation, I'm showing off wealth. That is fame. But this man is saying that for people that have gone from good to great, and they are great by choice in the business sector, in the entrepreneurship sector, they've been people that they chose not to be defined by money. They chose not to be defined by fame. They didn't define themselves by power. Unconsciously, these are things that we as Nigerians we like. We like power, we like money, we like fame. So really, if we want to break into that realm, if you look at the richest people in the world, the first 10, 20, imagine if they are Nigerians. The ones that are not even close to them in Nigeria, we know their influence, we know their power, we know everything they have. They can do a lot. So he said they didn't define themselves by power. People that are good by choice, they didn't define themselves by power. Then he said another one is they define themselves by impact, contribution, and purpose. So let me move on to another line of what this writer said. So he gave us some key points, some things we need to look at. But he wrote at the end of this chapter a question. So I'll ask us that question so you can also think about it. He said, rank in the order of behavior. Would you choose rank in the following order of behavior that he has recommended, that people that are exceptionally good, the behaviors they display. Fanatic discipline is one behavior, empirical creativity is one behavior, productive paranoia is one behavior. From your strongest to the weakest, if you look at these three now, from your strongest to the weakest, what can you do to turn your weakest into your strength? So for me personally, I look at fanatic discipline. Am I so disciplined? Do I really take time to look at data before making my decisions? What can I do? Am I so scared that I productively manage or mitigate against my fears and potential risk? So look from those three areas I've mentioned now for us as an individual, which one is the weakest link that you have? Anyone that is the weakest link that you have, then this writer is saying you need to work on it. I go to the next chapter. This chapter says the 20-mile march. I love this chapter. The 20-mile march. It says, suppose you have the opportunity to invest in one or two companies. So I'm going to give us a scenario now. Two companies, company A for those of you that are online that are typing, I would have loved that you can participate and answer this question. So if you have two companies, company A and company B. Company A is a small company and company B is a small company. They are both Lagos-based companies operating in Nigeria. They are fast growing in a new industry. They are bringing in disruptive technologies. They are rapidly growing customer demand. They have similar categories, similar products, similar customers, similar opportunities, similar threats, and then they suffer the same challenges. That's in a summary. But company A will achieve 25% annual growth over 19 years. That 25% annual growth over 19 years is standard. Company B will achieve 45% annual growth in net income over 19, the same period. Which company would you choose? A or B? Which company would you choose, A or B? So let me see, those of us that are watching, the few people online watching now, which company would you just type A or a B, and I would go to my next line. So I'm waiting for those that would answer that question. Which company would you choose, company A or company B? Anybody? Those online. Which company? I'm waiting for you. Which company would you choose? So this book said a couple of people chose yes, a couple of people chose company A, and majority chose company B. Why? Majority took the company that was going to take or make an annual profit of 45% over 19 years compared to the one that will make 25% consistently over 19 years. But what this man is letting us know is that that information was not sufficient. So most of us are falling victim before somebody comes to me and say, my investment advisor, and tell me, oh, come and buy shares. This shares is good. Buy this, and I unconsciously go and buy the shares based on his own judgment without not doing my own due diligence and asking questions. So, like last month now, one of my stockbroker called me and he said, "Oh, these people are about to declare dividend. And I know that at that time already Ebola was already ravaging." Not Ebola, Corona was already ravaging the United States, and I could actually see the trend that their shares were coming down. Though S&P 500, everything was coming down. And I said, okay, they are giving out bonus, they are giving out dividend. What is their shares as at last week? Oh, it came down a little bit. 2 weeks ago, let me still wait. Let me wait until I know the end of this curve. But I could have just said, because they are giving out bonus, I quickly buy. So everybody, as me, there are some that will buy because their purpose of investment is different. So in this scenario that this man has spent there for company A and company B, we need to carefully demand for more information. At the end of the day, when the man explained further, company A was giving out 25%, was making 25% average profit for consistently for 25 years. But there was a catch to it. At every point in time, they never fell below maybe a 10% profit margin in the year. But the other company that was making 45% on the average, there were some years that they went as low as minus 50% profit, that they had so much losses. So by the time the whole process evened out, the company A was far better. Now this takes us a little bit back to empirical evidence, using data to make our decision. Now, what is the takeaway from this 20-mile march? So he said there are so many companies, and I'll use this as my own guideline too. When you start a new business and your business revenue at the first year is 200,000, at the second year it's very easy for you to grow to 400,000 revenue, because that's like 100%, and you're like, yes, my business is 100%. But by the time your business gets to a higher level, maybe business, take for instance, now it is very, very difficult for the revenue of, let's say, MTN to double in a year. Extremely difficult, because they are almost at a very, very high level competitive position already. They will be marking out, looking at, okay, let us make just 20% increase, 30% increase every year. So you cannot compare yourself with a small business that is already very small, making a total revenue of 400,000 in a year, compared to an MTN that is making a revenue of maybe 60 billion in a year. You can't. So he's talking about having a 20-mile march, irrespective of the business you are doing. Set a minimum of growth pattern. Set a minimum of a progressive, consistent growth pattern that you want to allow. Maybe every year I want to be able to do 20% increase. So for when I started business, the first year I set a goal, I got something. The second year, I did double. Oh, yeah, I was so happy. Yes, again, don't mind you, the revenue at that time was still low. Third year, my revenue came down. Oh, it was an election year, it was an excuse. The fourth year, it went up again. But there was a time I got to a particular range. When I got to that range, it became extremely difficult to cross over. At that time, I now needed to start looking at what else do I need to do to break from this particular stage. At that time, I needed to start looking at, okay, let me see if I can add 20% margin increase. Let me just make sure that this year is better than next year. So this man is saying that in business, most businesses have done well over time. So if you are looking at running a business, having a service that you are rendering for a period of 20 to 30 years, the key to it is consistency. 20% net income growth every year. If you are able to set that, okay, no, this man is using an American book. I made that note. In America, inflation is very low. In Nigeria, inflation is 12%. So we as Nigerians, we may need to set more than 20%. Because if inflation is 11%, 12%, and you are making a margin of 20%, so in real terms, your margin is almost like 8%. And interest rate for business is higher in Nigeria. So realistically, you should be setting a target of, I want to be 35% higher than the next year or the last year. So I'm setting a target for 2021 now. I want 2021 to be 30% higher than the revenue of 2020, and set it to be consistent over a long period. Work hard to get it. Let me tell you about some experiences he shared with us in this book. I'll read a paragraph here for us. He said when he began this study, he thought he might see many great leaders respond to a volatile, fast-changing world full of new opportunities by pursuing aggressive growth. No, they did not pursue aggressive growth. That's one thing he's trying to say. I have pursued aggressive growth before. The year I pursued aggressive growth, did I grow? Yes, but I had more losses because at that time, I didn't even have the mechanism to manage it. So at that time, again, I mentioned it a few minutes ago, I was not able to be in charge of a lot of things. So I lost a lot of money. That discipline was not there. I didn't have that system to control the growth. So at that time, I lost. So this writer is saying that most times these people that go from good to great, that are great by choice, they are not people that do this pursue aggressive growth. They only set a consistent goal and they continue to follow it on. He said they don't make radical aggressive growth. They don't look for one big leap. They just dream of, let me just hammer 160 billion contract and that is all. No, they will continue to progress consistently, and at the end of the day they will be far better than even those that hammer 60 billion contracts 10 years ago that today they are nowhere to be found. So he said, but the less successful comparison cases pursued more aggressive growth. And then using the 20-mile concept is telling us in conclusion that the 20-mile march is more than a philosophy. It's about having concrete, clear, intelligent, and rigorously pursued performance mechanisms that can keep you on track. Wow. When I got to this place, I had to circle it in my book and I paused. So having a philosophy that is concrete, clear, intelligent, and rigorously pursued performance mechanisms. At the beginning of every year, I always see also that when we have our own corporate retreat, that January, everybody's gingered up. Before you know it, February, March, everybody just comes down. The passion is down. Until we have the next quarterly retreat again, everybody's fired up. So, okay, now what we'll be doing, we'll be having monthly performance appraisal. So having monthly performance appraisal has really, really helped us to make sure that as we are doing it, we are actually watching our performance every month. We are seeing what we are doing. And there are some months that we are like, God, what didn't we do well? And the moment we are able to have a pursued performance mechanism in place, we always do better in those months. Any month we skip our periodic or monthly meetings, evaluation or weekly, the performance is always down because it's a psychological thing. And that's why this man is saying we should make it a philosophy in our businesses, in what we do, to have a concrete, rigorous, pursued performance mechanism in place. How do we measure? Are we running down on income? Are we running down on performance? Are we running down on services? All of these things has to be put in place. The 20-mile march creates two types of self-imposed discomfort. Yeah, this is where I'm going to be talking a little bit more before I round up for today. For every good thing that you want to aspire, there's a level of discomfort. And this writer is telling us that this goal we have set as some level of discomfort, which is self-imposed discomfort, not by the environment, not by where you do business, but it is self-imposed because of what you intend to achieve. He said the discomfort of unwavering commitment to high performance in difficult conditions. I found that very, very interesting. That is to say, in the midst of corona, I am going to make an unwavering commitment to high performance in difficult conditions. In the midst of this economic problem, I'm going to make an unwavering commitment that I'm going to excel. That it will not affect my revenue at the end of this year. It will not affect my performance compared to next year. That is the self-imposed discomfort that this man has fostered. Again, this book was written, which year? This one I'm actually reading. It was written 2011, imagine. And it's still very relevant to what we are saying now. So he's saying there will be self-imposed discomfort. And the first self-imposed discomfort is talking about is unwavering commitment to high performance in difficult conditions. The second one he said the discomfort of holding back in good times. I told you also, in good times, you need to be very, very conscious of holding back, not being carried away that, there's money in the account, let us buy this, let us buy it. No, there must be that self-imposed discomfort that I will hold back in good times. So he gave us an example of a company in America, Southwest Airlines. He said discipline held them back. For many years, they were only flying from one state. Just one state. So I will use an example of our typical Nigerian Arik Airline. Arik Airline was doing so well in country. It was doing so well within Nigeria. They started flying to US, started flying to London. They were making us proud, but they were biting more than they could chew within that space of time. They had so much loans, so much. At the end of the day, the business is now owned by the government. That is bad. But look at Southwest Airlines. This company declared profit consistently for 30 years. In fact, this man said in the entire airline industry, nobody turned a profit of 6 years out of 14 years. But they turned profit consistently for 30 years, not just 6 over 14. 30 over 30. Why? They created their own space. They managed their own space. They sat within their confine of strength. They continued to profit from within Texas. They were flying only from Texas. Later, they started going to other regional states. Within them, they didn't go to the east. They didn't start going to the north. They stayed within their place of strength, and they were profitable consistently for 30 years. Their shares continued to grow up. You can see the map here in page 47. It was just going all the way up, and they were very, very profitable. So one of the things this man said, and in summary, on the 20-mile march. So if you are running a business, having a consistent growth plan that every year, as a Nigerian business, I want to have at least 30% increase in revenue or profit annually more than last year. He used 20%, which is a 20-mile march for US. But I also made us understand that inflation in Nigeria is higher than US. So you can't use 20%. Cost of securing a loan and facility in Nigeria is far higher. So in summary, he said a good 20-mile march uses performance markers. So you must have something to really, really measure your performance in January. So as I speak to you now, so many of us have not even started looking at our comparison of January, February, March. How did we do as an organization? What was my performance in January, in February, in March? And we are in April already. Everybody's sitting down waiting and let us know where to go. We don't even know if these 14 days will extend. What if it extends? What are you going to do? So those are the questions you need to ask yourself. And then the second one we talked about is a good 20-mile march has self-imposed constraint, which I just explained. The self-imposed constraint are things you must consistently, intentionally put in place. This creates an upper bound for how you will march forward, facing burst opportunities and exceptionally good conditions. When you face good conditions, robust opportunities, your self-imposed constraints will help you to manage that luxury at that time. That's what he's saying. So I found someone that is very rich or doing well in business and suddenly meets a very big opportunity. Before you know it, if it's not someone that has had a self-imposed discipline within himself before, he will live according to the status he has found himself. Otherwise, he will be restrained to check his lifestyle. He said another thing here. He taught somebody a good 20-mile march is tailored to the enterprise. So as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, your 20-mile march should be tailored to your enterprise, your business, and your environment. So every business is not the same. The revenue for somebody selling akara is different from somebody that has an eatery. It's different from somebody that is doing dry cleaning. It's different from somebody that is in real estate. So you must be able to set it. There is no all-purpose 20-mile march for all enterprises. The airline industry is different. The insurance industry is different. Number 4, he said a good 20-mile march has a time frame, not too short, not too long, but just right. There's always a right time to do everything. So if you have a very fantastic dream and you sit there, you keep looking at that dream, before you know it, God will lay that dream in the heart of somebody else, and that person start prospering with it, and you will still be looking at the dream on paper. So there's just a right time for every action to be taken. And the last one he said here was that a good 20-mile march is designed and self-imposed by the enterprise, not imposed from the outside. I like this. That means your goal, your focus should not be self-imposed based on outside, based on what other people are doing, based on what your competitors are doing, by not blindly copying others. Don't blindly copy others. Set your own standard. For instance, he gave us an example. Simply accept your own style. Focus on your strength, your consistency, and see it work well. He said a good 20-mile march must be achieved with great consistency. Good intentions do not count. That I have good intentions doesn't count at all. Your 20-mile march must be achieved with great consistency, and not just because you have good intentions. Okay, I'm about to round up this chapter now. How do I set my 20-mile march? That's my last question for us before we end for today. How do I set I've explained to you what the 20-mile march is. Setting goals for your business, your income, setting a profitability. I think for our own context now, we should be looking at how to sell a 30-mile march, because 20-mile march is actually referring to 20% increase in revenue and profitability year in, year out. So because of our own inflation, our cost of securing funds for business, we can set our own as 30%. So how can I set, or how do I start my 30-mile march? So that's the question you need to go and start working on. I think you can easily set that by increasing all your revenues, all your channels of businesses by at least an average of 50%. If you are not able to get 50%, you fall into 30%, you achieve your goal. Set your opportunities. How many time do you spend on pursuing customers, your service industry? Maybe you need to improve on customer service and all of that. As I'm talking to you, I'm also referring to myself. So it's not as if my own business is perfect or I'm doing exceptionally great, but I need help. That is why I'm reading this book. So I recommend it to you also. Go and sit down, come up with your own 30-mile march, your 30% possible increase in revenue for this year. Don't look at what is happening now. Don't look at what others are doing. It's really a good time for you to sit down, really meditate, think, and strategize on your business. If you still have questions, I appreciate all those that have been sending me questions on Facebook Messenger. I'll continue to respond to them, and then continue to have a good time. Tomorrow is another day. We'll continue tomorrow. Some people have been able to, some of the readers have been able to, or the followers of this live broadcast have been able to find the soft copy online. You can also check the soft copy, the PDF copy of this book online. Tomorrow we'll be looking critically more into the 20-mile march and fire bullets. That's the next chapter. Thank you for listening. God bless you.